All right, good afternoon. It's February 23rd. I'm going to go through equities, Russian equities, and then crypto. It'll be about 10 minutes. So let's get into it here. So I've seen on Twitter really an urgency for people to get involved in Russian equities. And really that seems born out of this massive move downwards earlier in the week. But I would point to a few reasons why that maybe you shouldn't try to get in front of this. Some traders call it trying to catch a falling knife. You should avoid doing that. I'm going to try to put some color behind why the current weakness in Russian equities isn't necessarily entirely attributed to what's happening with geopolitical tensions between Russia and Ukraine, Russia and the West. And so, as you can see just from this chart, equities Russian equities really peaked in October and have been under pretty significant pressure since then. Much of the drawdown has happened in the last few days. However, the trend is really the dominant theme here. I would point out this is a very significant drawdown. Um, Obviously, it exceeds anything from earlier this year or late in 2021. And even going back over the last 5 years, you can see that there have not been any instances whereby equities have been down in a single day as much as they have been, as much as they were on Monday. And so here's the bottom. And of course, this period is just from the pandemic, and who knows what this event was in 2018. But really, the point seems to be that this is exciting to, I guess, people on Twitter. Maybe they're viewing this as an opportunity. It's important to distinguish short term and the long term. If you have long term structural views on the direction of the Russian economy or interest rates, perhaps you do view this as a great buying opportunity. If however your view is short term, I think you could probably argue that buying here is not a good idea. Well, how come? First, let's take a look at forecasts for the Russian economy in 2022. As you can see, it's expected to decelerate through 2022 and even into 2023. That's evidenced by real GDP numbers, industrial production, at least for half of 2022. And you can see that CPI, or inflation within Russia, is expected to decelerate as well. And really, a period in which inflation and growth are decelerating together typically portends to weak asset returns, especially those that are tied to the Russian economy, which if we pull up, this is the Van Eck Russian ETF, RSX. If we just pull this up by sector, you'll see that the largest weights are to very value-oriented sectors. And so what is this, 37, 30, 40, 14? So about 82, 83% of the Russian index that you can buy, that Americans can buy, is very closely connected to the economy. Financials, the traditional bank borrows short and lends long, right? They're basically trying to capture that duration. If the economy is strong, the curve will be steep. Short-term rates are low, so what they're borrowing, they're paying depositors is low, and they can lend out longer term where rates would typically be higher. Materials, as you probably know, are very closely connected to the economy. Energy as well, right? These are segments that really require economic growth and inflation to be accelerating in order to do well. And since forecasts are for weakness or for decelerating growth and decelerating inflation, well, it's no surprise that this index has been under pressure since December, right? The market has started to price in the economic backdrop. Lastly, I am not a geopolitical strategist. I would say we have no any idea for how the severity of the situation in Ukraine. It could be a limited conflict, it could be a full-scale invasion. They're very different circumstances. In either instance, sanctions would be placed, and we don't know the severity of that either. And that's the market is going to adapt to this over time. It hasn't digested the the uh, the future quite yet. All right, let's move into crypto. Um, so Bitcoin here. Over as I get further into these videos, I'll take some time to explain the how crypto trades in 60-day cycles. Really, all assets trade with a cyclicality to them. The S&P 500 trades basically in a 40-day cycle. So what happens is day zero would be essentially the low. Here I can pull up. Let's just use Let's just use Bitcoin as an example. Um, okay, so this would be the 60-day low here. Okay, or day zero, right? And from there you have a mid-cycle point, which is actually today. And then you have the full 60-day cycle, which takes you out to March 25th. Okay, so in this period of time, you can anticipate to see a few um, a few things. First, in the first half, so the first 30 days, you're going to see Bitcoin peak and then move into a mid-cycle low, and then you're going to either see Bitcoin make a new high in this 60-day cycle, so something above 46,000, call it, and then followed by a 60-day cycle low, which takes you, I think it was March 25th. So somewhere in here. For bulls to be correct, you're going to need to see a high, a new high, and a new low. So versus the 60-day cycle. So something above 33,148 when the 60-day cycle ends. It doesn't always end on 60 days. It could be 55, it could be 65, but that's on average, that's what happens. For that would be significant if Bitcoin can generate a new high over the next 20 days or so and a low that's above this prior cycle low. That would be bullish. However, it looks to me like this trend is going to persist. In other words, um, this is going to be the high for this 60-day cycle, which would mean that this is a left translated cycle. So the high for the 60-day is above the 30-day cycle low. Okay. If it were above, that would be right translated. If the high were to happen after the 30-day, it would be bullish. It would be a right translated cycle. And when Bitcoin comes into this low, it would be a very viable dip. My sense is this happened in around day 17, I think it was. Ordinarily, a cycle, a right translated cycle will see a high closer to 22, 24, 25 with a quick burst lower into the 30-day. That obviously didn't happen. We had the high on day 17, which, I mean, it could be wrong. I don't know, but I'm going to be patient in watching the market unfold. Um, but if that is, if day 17 is the cycle high, then this trend is essentially going to remain intact, and we're going to see. It doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin is going to roll over below these prior lows that we've seen between 33 and what is this, 29,000. It doesn't mean it's going to break those points. It just means that it's not bullish. A lot of people want Bitcoin to go to the moon, quote unquote. That won't happen if we have a left translated cycle. What it could look like, can maybe draw it for you, is something like this, where maybe we test prior highs, and then over the next few days we come back into here. Um, um, I guess the bullish scenario would be instead you see a high like this. Something to this extent. and then we go from here. I don't know what happens, but that's I think what it would take. And as you probably well know, crypto is very highly correlated, and so the trends would basically remain intact across the space. It wouldn't be exclusive to Bitcoin. And perhaps Ethereum is a better way of showcasing this. Is this is not a bullish chart. The trend remains intact. It looks like it's going to want to roll over. That's not to say that it's going to zero or anything. I'm very bullish on crypto over the long term. It's just price action for today and the short term is bearish, and that's okay. It can change pretty quickly. Um, yeah, I guess maybe in future videos we can explore that's the cyclical behavior of assets. Um, and I would like to take a longer video, maybe 30 minutes, and go through some of these other, whether they're layer one solutions or, um, you know, something like Polygon here, Matic, that is just fascinating in what they're building out in terms of scaling Ethereum. And then some more, we can get into DeFi, things like that. Again, there's a lot to be bullish about over the long term, and at the same time be bearish on price in the short term. Um, we probably, I would imagine, we have different views on how to trade these markets. We're all in different circumstances, different situations, and different goals. So keep that in mind. I could be wrong. I won't hesitate to change my opinion, to change my view. But for now, bearish on crypto in the short term. And again, don't try to catch this falling knife.